Kirk Math. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are starting our Module 4 lessons. We are going to work with fractions in this module, so we're starting off by reviewing how to add and subtract fractions and taking our knowledge of LCM and GCF into and applying it to adding and subtracting, okay? So we're going to use our LCM to convert fractions to common denominators so that we can add or subtract them. And we're going to use our GCF to help simplify or reduce those fractions to smallest form. So the first thing we have to do is just remind ourselves about some of these key vocabulary words that have to do with fractions, okay? So we're going to list these numbers here, or these words, vocabulary words here. So a number that represents part of a whole or a group is called a fraction. That's right. That is what a fraction is. Okay. So this fraction over here is 2/3 because there's 3 total parts and only 2 of them are circled. Okay. A fraction that represents a number larger than 1, like this one right here, is called an improper fraction. And it's called improper because the top is larger than the bottom, which is not usual for regular old proper fractions. But if I know the top is bigger than the bottom, then I know that there are more parts than there are in one whole. So I know it's bigger than 1. Down here, we've got a whole number and a fraction mixed together, and that's going to be a mixed number. So that is similar to an improper fraction, and we can change these into each other, except that we're identifying how many wholes we have and how many leftover fractional pieces there are. All right, on this page, we have over here fractions with the same value that can be found on the same place on a number line are called equivalent fractions. So those fractions on the side there are all basically the same value. They just are represented differently. So 1/2 is the same as 2/4, or 2/4, which is the same as 4/8, or 4/8. Their pieces are just divided into smaller pieces, but you can see that the amount of space that they take up is still the same. So their value is the same. All right, then down here, we've got to make a fraction as simple as possible by dividing the numerator and the denominator by the GCF. That is called simplifying. Oops, it's a Y. And again, in the olden days, we used to call it reducing. Those are the same things, to reduce or simplify, but nowadays they like to use the word simplify. Okay, so here you can see they found the GCF of 30 and 70 and divided them both to get 3/7. And then the last word here might be one you haven't heard before, but basically the least common multiple of the denominators of given fractions, we like to call the LCD, or the least common denominator. And it's basically the LCM for just the bottom parts of the numbers, right? So if I was to find the LCM of 3 and 2, it would be 6. And I'm going to use my equivalent fractions up here to help me turn my 1/3 into 2/6 and my 1/2 into 3/6 so that I have a problem with common denominators because they're easier to work with. All right, let's get started. Okay, when we are adding fractions, actually adding fractions and subtracting fractions are the same steps, but because we keep getting stuck on these so often, we're gonna do the steps twice, okay? And we're gonna kind of edit these that might be in your notes here a bit because I think there's an easier way to say this, but basically our very first step is to find our LCD or our LCM of those denominators. That's our first step. Then we are going to find equivalent fractions. Okay, that's really what step 1 is, or step 2 is saying, is we need to make equivalent fractions with the LCD. Okay, and what it says here is to multiply each fraction by the form of 1 needed to create the LCD. So what they're basically going to do is they're going to take a number like 1/5 and they're going to multiply it by, let's say, 3/3. That's the form of 1 they're talking about here, because 3/3 is the same as 1, to get an equivalent fraction with the denominator that we might want. Okay, but if you're just trying to remember steps, I would remember LCM or LCD, and then we're making equivalent fractions. Then we're going to rewrite our expression, add the numerators, and simplify if needed. Okay, those are our steps. So let's start with step 1. I'm going to find the LCD or LCM of 6 and 10. So I'm going to go ahead and do the skip counting, the listing way, and skip count through my 6's. 6, 12, 18, 24, 30. That's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 10, 20, 30, 40. Oh, we already got our 30s. So our LCD is 30. Okay, and that was step 1, is finding our LCD, which is going to be 30. So I'm going to turn both these fractions into fractions with denominators of 30. Okay, step 2 is now to make those equivalent fractions. Okay, so I'm going to take 4/6 and I'm going to times them by my form of 1 to make something over 30. I'm going to take my 6/10 and I'm going to times them by something to make 30s. Okay, I'm trying to make that common denominator. So you need to ask yourself, 6 times what makes 30? Well, if you don't know, you can come back up here and skip count, but basically it's 5. So we're going to multiply by 5. 4 times 5 is 20. So 20/30ths is my first fraction. And actually, I'm going to switch colors. We're going to get rid of this because I feel like it's getting hard to see. So we'll switch colors when we write it down there. Now I'm going to say 10 times what makes 30, and that's 3. Whatever I do to the bottom is what I do to the top to get my form of 1. 6 times 3 is 18. So let's switch colors here, and I'm basically now going to do 20/30ths plus 18/30ths. So I took this, and I'm adding them together. Okay, and that right here is step 1 done. Step 3 is also done. I rewrote my new problem. Okay, for step 4, I am going to only add my numerators. Okay, so I'm going to take my original problem. You know what? No. We already have it. Why rewrite it? We're just going to point out the part that's different. So I'm just going to add my numerators here. 20 plus 18 is going to give me 38/30ths. And that right there is step 4. Just adding the numerators. Okay, now I'm going to take 38/30ths and I'm going to do that last step and simplify. And the way that we simplify is we divide, all right, by the GCF of the numerator and denominator. Okay, so I need to find the GCF of 38 and 30. And if I don't know what that is, I can make my t-charts. And I can start finding out what is the greatest factor between 38 and 30. So let's see. 1 and 6, 16. 3 does not go in. 8, 9, 10, 11, no. 4, yes, it's 8. 5, no. 6, no. 7, no. 8 again. Okay, 1, 30, 2, 15, 3, 10, 4, no. 5, yes. 6. Oh, and there's 6 again. Okay. And then the greatest one that they have in common, let's see, 1s, 2s, no 4s, no 8s. 10, so it's just a 2. So my GCF is 2. So I'm going to divide by 2 to simplify, and I'm going to get 16/15ths. Okay, now this is an improper fraction. So I do want to turn it into a mixed number. So I'm going to figure out how many 15s fit inside of 16. That's 1. And then I'm going to find my remainder. Okay, 1, remainder 1, denominator stays the same. So my answer is 1 1/15. Okay, it's a lot of steps. But if you go back through it, we found the LCM of our the denominators. We made equivalent fractions with the LCD by multiplying by forms of 1. And then we rewrote our expression and then only added the numerators, and then we simplified. Okay, so practice with these. It looks like we're going to need a second video for addition and subtraction, but that's okay. Practice these, come back and see if you get the right answer. The only difference here is when you have a mixed number, you must turn it into an improper fraction. So you need to multiply and add. So 10 times 1 is 10, plus 3 is 13. So this turns into 13/10 plus 1/4, and now you can follow your steps like before. Whew, okay, that was a lot of work. So I tried to color coordinate. So you can see over here, I found my LCD, which was 42 for number 15. I converted them into equivalent fractions with the LCD as the denominator. I added just the numerators, and then I reduced to get 11/21. Same here, my LCD was 20, so I converted, I added, and then I had to divide to find the mixed number of 1 11/20. And then for 19, same thing, LCD was 15, multiplied to get 93/15 and 10/15. That's 103/15. Divided to find the remainders, and I got 6 13/15. All right, so we don't have time to do a full subtraction going on here. So we're going to do another video. However, just know that addition and subtraction with fractions is the same. So if we take a sneak peek at the next one, we have all the same steps here. The only difference is that instead of subtracting on step 4, or instead of adding on step 4, we're going to subtract, and we're only adding or subtracting the numerators. Okay, so I'm going to let you guys practice the addition, or join me in the next video, and we're going to do the same thing but with subtraction. And then hopefully you can put the two together. Okay, bye.